Good afternoon. Welcome everyone to today's meeting on the Senate Committee on Revenue and Economic Development. Will the Secretary please proceed to call the roll?
Senator Cruz Crawford. Here. Senator Steinbeck.
Here.
Senator Stone. Here. Acting Chair Dignate.
And I'm here, and please mark Senator Neal absent excused. Good afternoon and welcome everyone to today's Senate Committee on Revenue and Economic Development. I would like to welcome folks both in Las Vegas and virtually. Today we only have one item on the agenda, which is to hear Senate Bill 196. So we'll go ahead and begin promptly, and then we have our public comment at the end of the agenda. So I will go ahead and open the bill hearing on Senate Bill 196. And with us, we have with us Majority Leader Cannizzaro. So please begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Vice Chair Dignate and Revenue and Economic Development Committee members. For the record, I am Nicole Cannizzaro, and I serve proudly as a senator from Senate District 6 in the northwest portion of the Las Vegas Valley, and also as your Senate Majority Leader. I am here today to present to you Senate Bill 196 for your consideration of what we have commonly referred to as the heavy equipment tax bill. This is, I think, maybe the third time that we have presented this bill. So I think we've made some very good progress for those of you on this committee who maybe remember this topic area from prior sessions. Senate Bill 196 authorizes a heavy equipment rental company to charge a recovery fee to offset taxes levied on certain heavy equipment. Before going over the bill, I will provide just a little bit of context and explain why this is a good piece of legislation. As the law currently stands, Nevada assesses a full year of tangible personal property tax on any piece of heavy equipment in the state on July 1 of a given year, even if that piece of equipment is only in the state for 1 day. Nevada is one of only a few states continuing to use this form of taxation on heavy equipment. The vast majority of other states have moved to various forms of taxation or fees, less onerous to businesses. In doing so, they have become more attractive places to do business. And as this committee knows, in Nevada, we pride ourselves on being business friendly. And as such, we continually search for the best ways to balance the need for revenue while maintaining a competitive advantage over our neighboring states. Senate Bill 196 corrects an imbalance that places an unfair burden on an important business sector for our state. In addition, we have, and the committee should have available, a conceptual amendment that removes subsections 2, 3, and 4 from section 15 in the original bill print. I am proud to be joined today by Mr. Brian Gordon, and I am going to turn it over to him to not only explain the conceptual amendment in further detail, but also to allow for some additional discussion on the bill. And then, Mr. Vice Chairman, we would be more than happy to take any questions that you or the committee may have. And with your permission, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Gordon.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Brian Gordon. I'm a principal with a company called Applied Analysis. I'm here as an analyst on behalf of the Majority Leader in this bill to walk through key elements of what the bill does, its purpose, and some related elements specific to the recovery fee stated in Senate Bill 196. I've got a handful of slides that I thought might be helpful to walk through. I think they've also been made available to you and on the Nellis system. I think the overview just provided is exactly what I've got here on the screen, but at the sort of most basic form, the idea here is this allows heavy equipment rental companies to charge, if they choose to, a recovery fee in the amount of 2% of rental revenues to offset their personal property tax liability that they currently incur. There are a total of 5 states in the United States that have not performed some other similar measure or that don't essentially that tax personal property in this regard. The state of Utah, I'll mention this just at the outset, their legislature has also approved a similar measure awaiting the governor's approval and signature in the state of Utah. So that leaves us about 4 states, including Nevada, that have yet to sort of address or deal with this particular issue. The next slide I wanted to walk you through is really defining what the industry is and what this equipment is. Each one of these line items are included in a specific section within the bill itself. I won't go through each reference, but I guess the easy way just to summarize this is that these are for heavy equipment rental companies. This is their primary business. They hold this equipment either for rent or for sale. The rental period for this equipment is less than a year, and it's not open-ended beyond a 12-month period. And a key element of defining this type of equipment and the companies is that these companies fall within NAICS codes, which stands for North American Industry Classification System, which is how businesses are generally classified, in 2 specific categories that we've included here on the screen, but also in the bill. So those are the types of companies that can would be authorized to charge this recovery fee. What's not included, companies cannot charge affiliates or other entities that they control. This does not apply to equipment that includes an operator or a driver of that particular equipment. And then federal, state, and local government agencies would be exempt from incurring this recovery fee. One of the questions we get often is, why are we doing this? Why is this being proposed in other states, and why is it being proposed in the state of Nevada? As you heard, in Nevada, the personal property tax is assessed on July 1 of every year. So wherever that equipment is sitting on July 1, that's how it is assessed for the entirety of the year. This equipment tends to be very mobile, moves in and out of state. And so for periods when it's out of state, there is no relief related to the property tax liability that's incurred. It is paid for the entire year. And so if a piece of equipment moved from Nevada to Utah, for example, prior to an adjustment in the state of Utah, it has the potential to actually be taxed twice for 2 full years worth of personal property tax, despite it being bouncing between multiple states. So that's a key provision of why this is moving forward. Why now? I mentioned a number of states have already implemented many of these reforms. On the screen, you can see the states that either don't have a personal property tax on this type of equipment, or they've implemented some sort of reform across the board, a recovery fee like we're talking about here, or a replacement excise tax that would be a substitute for that. There's been a number of different reforms over the better part of the last 20 years, but you can see the handful of states that remain or have yet to move forward with any sort of revisions to this particular taxation methodology. If we take a look specifically at a recovery fee, this has been implemented in 8 states. As I mentioned, Utah is also on the verge of approving this particular type of adjustment to their system. And so a number of states have gone through this over the last 15 years, and I think based on my conversations with the industry, they have not seen anybody come back and look to repeal or amend those specific laws that have been implemented in the states highlighted on the screen. Nonetheless, this is very common, and it's been a common practice overall. There have been some questions about how this impacts the overall personal property tax regime in the state of Nevada. So county assessors will receive information about the equipment that these companies have. They assess it, the bills go out, and these companies will continue to pay their personal property taxes as they have historically, and will continue to do that going forward. So this does not affect county governments in terms of how they go through their process of assessing personal property taxes on this type of equipment. What this would do is allow rental companies to opt in, if they so choose, to charge a 2% fee on top of the invoice that goes to their customer. That would be stated on the invoice line in SB 196. It would be plainly included on the invoice for the customer to see. That money would then be held in a separate account by the equipment rental company, and then that money could only be used to offset or cover the cost of their personal property tax liability. It cannot be used for any other purpose, and that is specifically stated in SB 196. A handful of other elements before we get to some questions, if that's appropriate. There are a few elements that there's been conversations about that I just wanted to make sure we're clear in terms of what the bill does and doesn't do. This is permissive. I mentioned that. This is not mandatory or required. This would be permissive based on what individual heavy equipment rental companies would choose to do. As I said, government agencies would be exempt from this particular recovery fee. This would not be a fee on top of a tax. This would be separate from that. There would not be a sales tax, for example, on the fee itself, so there's no pyramiding related to this particular fee. This also provides protections for both the rental companies and the consumers. They have somewhere to go to be able to identify how this is supposed to work. That is a key provision that's included in the bill. There's no fiscal impact for governments. I'm going to mention or repeat the amendment that was just discussed, eliminating sections 15, 2, 3, and 4, which have a conceptual amendment that's been proposed. As a result, this would have no effect on local governments. And then there's still an auditing process that would be allowed for the Nevada Department of Taxation to review reports and audit businesses just like they have the rights to do today among any other number of taxes or fees and charges. And so that authority would still exist and is also included in SB 196. So those are the key provisions and highlights. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I'm happy to answer any questions of the committee if there are any.
That concludes our presentation on the walkthrough for Senate Bill 196, Mr. Vice Chairman. And so at this point, we would be happy to take any questions that you or the committee members may have.
Thank you so much. Committee members, any questions? Senator Stone.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I'm trying to kind of wrap my arms around this. I appreciate the transparency that you're trying to promote in this bill. I'm just trying to understand the need for legislation. Why couldn't an independent operator call it an administrative fee if you want 2%, 3%? That's the first question. The second question is, once you answer that, how did you come up with 2% instead of 1.5 or 3%?
Thank you, Senator Stone. Brian Gordon for the record. Companies can do all sorts of things in terms of what they want to charge their customers. I think the industry has decided this is an opportunity to provide some guardrails around how this particular system would work, and that this would limit various companies' ability to go out and charge exorbitant rates. For example, if somebody wanted to charge a 10% recovery fee or surcharge to cover their cost of some of these expenses, while others don't. This would provide some protections, I think, for the public, some oversight, and would essentially narrow in what would be possible as it relates to this recovery fee. In terms of how we determined the 2% recovery fee, it was a fairly straightforward exercise. We took a look, we had heavy equipment rental companies in Nevada provide to us on a confidential basis all of the revenues that they're generating in all the rental revenues they're generating on their equipment over the past now 4 years, and compared it to the amount of personal property tax that they're generating over that same period, and simply did the math in terms of what that would generate, and that was the ceiling in terms of the amount, the effective tax rate that would need to be charged to, in theory, cover the charges related to personal property taxes.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Any further questions? Senator Cruz Crawford.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Majority Leader. Thank you, Chair. My question is, I know we're doing this to be business friendly, and I appreciate that. With the July 1 date, do we typically lose money through this because they're kind of skirting that July 1? Is this going to bring more money to our state outside of the business with that tax? Basically, are people basically just working the system right now? Do we have any data on that?
Thank you, Senator. Brian Gordon for the record. The short answer is no, we don't have data on that. I think the qualitative answer is that to the extent companies have equipment that is not being used, I suppose there's the potential that they would be incentivized to not have that equipment in the state of Nevada on July 1. If that's happening and to what extent, I don't know. But clearly that is when the assessment date is. And so I suppose that's a possibility, but unfortunately I don't have any information on to what extent that's happening.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, because if I was a savvy business owner, I'd be like, okay, July 1st, we are moving this equipment so we do not have to pay Nevada property taxes, so.
And Mr. Vice Chair, through you to Senator Cruz Crawford, Nicole Cannizzaro, Senate District 6. Senator, I believe that is one of the goals of this legislation is to bring some clarity and to make sure that we're all sort of operating from a system that is both not just business friendly, right, but that provides some transparency for the state and for all of the different entities that may interact with this type of business. And so while we don't have data that is what is happening, I do believe that if we can do something that will allow for businesses to operate in a way that is predictable for them and that is cost effective, we should do that, and where it also then provides clarity to all of us, because we will be able to know when they collect these monies and how it is that they're keeping them in those separate accounts. We can sort of account for all of the things that maybe we might not have as much clarity in, and so that's why I think sort of the impetus for this piece of legislation.
I was thinking about, like, what's the oversight? How do you even know if a piece of property is here? Is it the invoices from the heavy equipment companies? Is that how you're tracking? Does that make sense, that question?
Yes, it does. Brian Gordon, for the record, through you, Mr. Vice Chair, I apologize for not following protocol. It's the same process that exists today, so that the assessors have the ability to audit those companies as it relates to what equipment exists where and when, and they have had that authority to be able to identify and validate the accuracy of the reporting that's coming from heavy equipment rental companies, and they will continue to have that authority going forward as well.
I think I understand better. May I ask one more follow-up question? You said this came through 3 different times. What was the sticking point why it didn't pass before? And I know, I see the conceptual amendment, so I get that, but where was the speed bumps? And then that's my last question. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator, through you, Mr. Vice Chair, to Senator Cruz Crawford. Nicole Canizaro, Senate District 6. So I think that we've been working on this piece of legislation in order to figure out what the right fix is for Nevada for this particular issue. As you looked at some of the slides presented by Mr. Gordon, many other states have taken on this sort of issue and come up with some sort of version to address it. We have been through, I think, a different version of this every single time, trying to alleviate some of the burdensome pieces that existed for our county folks. So we heard from our assessors, we've heard from our recorders, we've heard from the treasurers. There have just been, in ways that we have designed this previously, where we were sort of going through the county assessor, county recorder, county treasurer to help facilitate some of that. I think that between the language that you have in Senate Bill 196 this time, along with the conceptual amendment that has been proposed as well, that we have alleviated those burdensome pieces for our county offices and allow for a solution. And I think that was really where we were trying to figure out what the best system was to be able to put something before this committee that would make sense to solve that issue without creating a more burdensome process for the counties.
Any other questions? Senator Steinbeck.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Thank you, Majority Leader. Appreciate the presentation. Quick question: what is the tax rate?
Brian Gordon, for the record, through you, Mr. Vice Chair. Senator Steinbeck, the effective recovery rate is 2%.
No, I understand on this, on the rate on this here, but what's the charged rate that the counties assess?
It would, what the assessment is on this type of equipment, it's different by every tax district within every county, so there are literally hundreds of different tax rates for this type of equipment, depending on where it would theoretically be located.
Is that around the 2%? Is that like a aggregate, or is there extremes?
A fair question. They're all in a generally narrow range, I think, is the simple answer. And just so we're on the same page, the property taxes themselves are on the value of the asset. The recovery fee would be a charge on the amount of the rental revenue of the equipment, so they don't necessarily align. I would say, generally speaking, personal property tax rates fall in about the effective rate of about 1% of the value of the equipment. So it's a different concept, so they're not aligned in that regard, but when you compare it to the rental revenue, that's how we ultimately got to the 2% fee on the revenue.
It depreciates each year, I assume.
The value of the equipment is based on the age of the equipment, yes, and that's how it's assessed from a personal property tax standpoint.
Okay, and then just a little bit of a follow-up on, if you don't mind, Vice Chair, on Senator Cruz's question as to the moving of equipment. And so this charge that you can charge, that's regardless if you were assessed or not the previous year, or is it only available if you were charged in that year? You understand kind of what I'm asking there? So like if it's July 1st of 2025, you could charge it whether or not you were assessed on that year, or if your property or if your equipment was in Utah at that point in time?
Brian Gordon, for the record, through you, Mr. Vice Chair. Senator Steinbeck, I think, let me just maybe say it in my own words, and you tell me if I'm not answering your question, but the recovery fee could only be charged on rentals that are taking place in the state of Nevada. So if the equipment moves out of state, obviously there's no recovery fee charged. The personal property tax side of the equation does not change. These companies would continue to pay that personal property tax for the entirety of the year. The counties remain 100% whole as it relates to the personal property tax. This just provides an opportunity, if the rental company so chooses, if they want to charge that fee on the rental revenue to help offset some of their personal property tax liability. Am I answering your question, or am I saying something different than what you were looking for?
You're answering part of it, of course. My question was how this incentivizes you not to move your equipment out of the state, right? And it doesn't seem like it really would, but it does allow for the recovery of those expenses. So if I'm following it correctly.
I think you said it better than I did, sir.
All right, thank you very much. No more questions.
Thank you so much. Any other further questions? Seeing none, we're going to go ahead and open it up for testimony. If you would like to provide testimony, we ask for folks to please come forward in Carson City and Las Vegas. Testimony will be limited to 2 minutes per individual, and we will begin here in Carson City. Please state your name for the record.
The record, Kevin Gurn. Thank you, Vice Chair and members of the committee, for having us here and your time. My name is Kevin Gurn. I'm the Vice President of Government Affairs, State Advocacy, and Risk Management for the American Rental Association. I will say we have members across the country, and it's nice to be back here in Nevada. We actually were just here in January, where we hosted the ARA show in Las Vegas. We had over 10,000 attendees, which were members in that show, and they were there as a buying show to purchase equipment for the year. So it's nice to be back. I do want to speak specifically that Nevada currently has 22 companies that are ARA members, and that would be across 51 different rental locations. I'm here today, again, on behalf of the American Rental Association and the members of the state of Nevada in support of SB 196. As you heard in testimony, this follows legislation passed in many other states and fixes a problem that we currently have. This will allow the ability for our members and companies to keep equipment in Nevada and offset property tax liability. I would like to thank our bill sponsor, Senator Canizero, for introducing this bill. I would also like to thank the committee for considering this bill, and I urge you and your support in ruling SB 196 favorably out of your committee. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair, members of the committee. For the record, I'm Ed Noonan with United Rentals, and I'm here in support of Senate Bill 196. In Nevada, we have 27 locations and employ nearly 500 highly valued associates. I want to thank Senator Canizero for her efforts and urge your support of the measure. Thank you.
Mr. Vice Chair, for the record, Trey Abney, T-R-A-Y-A-B-N-E-Y, here today representing the small business owners who are members of NFIB in Nevada. I want to thank the Majority Leader for sponsoring this bill. This applies to very small businesses as well. We appreciate that this bill this year provides them the choice to enter into this program if they want to. It allows them to manage their finances. And, you know, if anything, small businesses and businesses of every size want stability, and they want to be able to plan ahead for the future and plan their budgets. This allows them to do that, and certainly gets rid of the incentive to move equipment around outside of Nevada on July 1. So again, we thank the Majority Leader and urge your support. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Isaac Hardy, representing Associated Builders and Contractors. Just want to echo the comments and support. We are in support. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the committee, Paul Morak with the Vegas Chamber. The Chamber is in support of SB 196, and we appreciate the bill sponsor for bringing the bill forward. And again, we appreciate the industry's efforts to be transparent and ensure public protections are being regulated by this body through this authorization, as you've seen in the bill. Tax policy should be equitable, simple, fair, and stable, and transparent. We believe that this is achieved through SB 196 today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Anyone else in Carson City? Seeing no one here or in Las Vegas AVH, is there anyone in support of the bill?
The public line is open and working. There are no callers at this time.
Thank you so much. Let's move on to opposition testimony. Anyone that would like to testify in opposition here in Carson City? Seeing none here or in Las Vegas AVH, is there anyone online?
The public line is open and working. There are no callers at this time.
Thank you so much. And last but not least, is there anyone that is willing to testify in neutral? Please come forward.
There we go. Worked it out. Good afternoon, Vice Chair Donate, members of the committee. Joanna Jacob here on behalf of Clark County. At long last, we are neutral with the amendment that has been proposed. I appreciate the work of the Senate Majority Leader to address our concerns on the original draft. We are neutral with the amendment, which removes all of the impacts to the county and potential having to redistribute the funds that will address our fiscal concerns that are on our fiscal note filed. So with the amendment, we can adjust that, and this will be neutral. As it gets codified and brought back to work session, we'll continue to work with the Majority Leader and the proponents. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair Donate, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Cadence Matievich, CADENCEMATIJEVICH, representing Washoe County. Similar to Clark County, we are also here in neutral. Would like to thank Senator Canizaro and the proponents of the bill for engaging with us during the interim. As you heard, counties in previous versions of this bill were very concerned about impacts to our property tax revenues, and so we are grateful to them for having worked through that issue with us. The amendment, the conceptual amendment, does address the issues that we had initially with the bill as proposed, and so as Ms. Jacobs said, we look forward to working through seeing the final version as it comes to you at the work session, and we thank you.
Thank you so much. Anyone else in neutral? Seeing none here in Las Vegas AVH, is there anyone online?
The public line is open and working. There are no callers at this time.
Thank you so much. Any closing remarks? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the hearing on this bill. And we thank our presenters. At this time, we will now move on to our last agenda item, which is public comment. For individuals that would like to provide public comment, we ask that you limit to 2 minutes each. Is there anyone here in Carson City? No one here or in Las Vegas? AVH, is there anyone online?
The public line is open and working. There are no callers at this time.
Thank you so much. That concludes our last agenda item. Unless there's any comments, I think Senator Cruz Crawford wanted to say something.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Chair. I would like to introduce my intern from UNR. His name is Brandon Michelle, and he is getting his degree in political science, and he's interested in city planning. He's fangirling right now, sitting by the Majority Leader. So I did want to introduce you all. If anyone's into city planning, which I am not, I told them that I would make connections for him afterwards. So thank you so much, Chair, for allowing me to introduce my intern.
Thank you so much, Senator Cruz Crawford. I think there's plenty of folks in this room that can help you with that. That concludes the items for today. We will have an agenda posted, or it's already posted for this Thursday, so we'll see folks there, and the meeting's now adjourned. Thank you so much.